we do have independent government, don't we, elected by the people, elected by the Dáil. Every 4 or 5 years, well, 3.5, 4 years on average since the foundation of the state. My own view is that we have a much more open public service, a much more open system. We're working on measures to have a much more open approach in terms of policy formation and the provision of information. My own view is that I have absolutely no problem in the civil service engaging in debate like this. Absolutely no problem. I think we're trying to encourage much more of it. I have a preference for a much more open approach to the provision of information and engagement. So I think we can be proud of many of the structures, the democratic structures that we have in place, but of course we need to improve on them and work on them. In terms of cooperatives, we favour, where possible, moving away from one-size-fits-all monolithic provision of public services. We prefer to have more of a role for the voluntary sector, the community sector, cooperatives, a whole variety of different groups, and our preference would be, where possible, have different groups competing for funding, looking at different solutions and service solutions. So we have an open mind. The key issue for society really is, will a service be provided, funded by the user charge or by the taxpayer? That's the fundamental question. So if you decide that, yes, it's funded by the taxpayer, how it's actually provided, by a superannuated public servant or by a variety of different players, mutuals, cooperatives, really I think is the second most important question in my view. It's a question of how it's funded and standards as opposed to who actually provides the service. Be optimistic about the economy, optimistic about the future. I think we have addressed many of the imbalances that were in the economy. The overall stock of private debt has come down. Many of the banking problems have been addressed. The fiscal position is much improved. We've regained competitiveness. The world is becoming a better place, and things are improving. There are issues within the core Eurozone, as we're aware of, but I think things will improve there in time also. So I'm optimistic that we have many things going for us. We've a young, educated workforce. We have many world-class companies. We have good infrastructure. So I'm optimistic that we will grow. I think we'll grow very strongly when we recover. Output is not too far above where it was in 2007. I think there's scope for a cyclical recovery. And when the world economy picks up, and given the strengths that we have, I think we can grow very quickly. We have demographics which are more difficult but more favourable than other countries. So we can add 1.5%, 2% to employment every year along with productivity growth. So growth of 2.5%, 3.5% as potential over the medium term within that range, I think is not impossible, and that will enable us to address the stock of public debt and many of the other issues that we face. So I'm optimistic, and I certainly, if you look where we've come from since Istvan and the Troika arrived over the last 3 years, look at the progress that's been made. And if you look every quarter, every 6 months, you see that things are steadily improving. So while I'm not complacent, we've got many challenges and there are many difficulties, particularly in terms of mortgage issues and unemployment, but we're moving in the right direction. I will be optimistic about where we'll go. I think there's a realisation, and Jan O'Sullivan has set this out, that we need to have a better mix of different housing solutions for people into the future, and that will require, I think, to learn about the appropriate balance between private and social mix, and that's an issue for us. And I think also the question of planning. I think it's really important that we plan our communities in a much more sustainable way than we did during the boom years. So absolutely agree that social housing will play a part in terms of meeting housing needs in the future.